Hello and welcome back to the Follow Your Spark podcast. It's your host, Gina, and today we're talking all about why your brain doesn't want you to believe. So if you have ever found it hard to celebrate yourself or struggled to celebrate your progress or feel like what you're doing is never enough, this podcast episode is for you. We're going to talk about why this happens in the first place and what can support you to actually build belief. And if you're thinking, why does it matter to celebrate myself anyways? Stick around, you're going to find out. Okay, so this topic is coming up because I come across this so often with my coaching clients who oftentimes can fight me on wanting to celebrate themselves. When I ask them to celebrate themselves, they feel a lot of resistance and their brain is telling them all kinds of reasons and all kinds of things why they shouldn't be celebrating themselves, why they don't deserve to celebrate themselves. And it can feel very challenging to do that, to exercise this muscle. And I'm saying this with a lightness in my voice because I understand the struggle so much. So if you have ever felt this way, if you felt like, again, it feels hard to celebrate your progress, or your brain is just constantly in this habit of feeling like what you're doing is not enough. Or another thought that comes up for my clients is that they don't want to be boastful. They don't want to just make it all about them. They really value contributing to others and sometimes see it or view it when they do it or other people do it, that if you're celebrating yourself, that means you're arrogant or self-centered or just want attention. So see it as this negative thing to celebrate. And what I share with them and what I will share with you is to really be able to understand the impact of this. Understand what happens when we refuse to celebrate ourselves, when we refuse to celebrate our progress. And I know this so well because I have been there. I have spent many, many years of my life not feeling good enough. Even when I worked corporate jobs and was having my most successful quarters financially, of my career, I was still feeling like my progress wasn't enough and feeling terrible on the inside, no matter what my external measurements showed. Whether I was succeeding or whether I was failing, somehow I convinced myself that it was never enough. And over the years, I really started to understand what happens when I do this, and reflecting on just how draining and exhausting it is to be in that space, to be in that constant not enoughness, and how that feels in my body internally. So I've went on a mission in the past couple years, in particularly the last year and a half, to really understand, why does the brain do this? Why does the brain make it so hard to celebrate? You'd think this wouldn't be something that feels so challenging, yet it is for so many of us. So I want to share with you what I've learned and what I support my clients with, because celebrating yourself really makes a difference. Okay, so first of all, why is this happening? Why does the brain refuse to celebrate or not want us to believe? So if you can imagine there's something you want to believe in. There's a goal that you have, whether a personal goal, a professional goal, whatever it is. And maybe you're taking steps forward, you're trying to make progress, and your brain is telling you, oh, you're not doing enough. What you did was terrible, or whatever flavor of that might be. Ask yourself for a second, how does that leave you feeling? And I really invite you, if you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this, imagine a scenario like that. Because I can tell you this all day long. This is what I, work on with my coaching clients. It's one thing if I tell you my experience, and it's something different if you think about this for yourself. So I really invite you to think about this for yourself. A moment where you want to believe in something, you have a goal, you want to take action, and yet your brain is telling you all kinds of terrible things about yourself and your progress. So think about that. For me, when I thought about this, it's like, okay, if I feel disappointed in myself, if I'm comparing myself to other people's journeys and feeling less than or feeling behind, then that's going to leave me feeling disappointed, not good enough. It's going to leave me feeling heavy. It's going to leave me feeling like no matter what I do, it's pointless because I'm not making any progress anyways. I should be going faster. So I might as well just quit now. So all these feelings, the brain is doing this for a number of reasons. One, it wants to protect you. That's what the primitive brain is for. It wants to protect you from perceived danger. And one thing that can feel threatening to the brain are these feelings that might feel uncomfortable, these feelings of disappointment, these feelings of embarrassment. So when it's trying to tell you all these terrible things, and the result of that is you probably aren't going to put yourself out there as much as you would have. You might not take those actions. You might quit. You might take longer to share your work with the world. Because if you don't do that, if you don't take those risks, if you don't take those actions, you are not risking potential future disappointment, future feelings that might come up if you try something and quote unquote fail. So, by the brain spinning you out and all these critical thoughts now and having you feel all these emotions now, it's, I don't know if counterintuitive or an oxymoron or whatever the word is, it's trying to avoid these future feelings of disappointment, but the result is you just feel them now, anyways. So, it's trying to protect you from something. And in the end, inevitably creating the thing that it's trying to protect you from in the first place. But what you have now feels more familiar because you know it. You've experienced it already. So the brain is always going to choose what's known over what's unknown. Because again, uncertainty is not comfortable to the brain. If you think of, primitive brains of exploring a new territory, there could be new dangers there. I don't know what's there. But if you stay in maybe your safe cave or whatever it is, you're familiar with that environment. So even though maybe there's no food there, there's no other people there, there's nothing else positive there, it's more comfortable than venturing out into this like open, wide terrain where there could be predators, there could be dangers that you don't know about. So that's how the brain responds to our goals. It would rather stay here in whatever circumstances or life that you have because that feels comfortable, that feels known, and it doesn't want to risk facing these what feel like threats and dangers if it tries something new. So again, it's trying to protect us. It's part of this default mechanism of the brain to do this. And the brain is wired for efficiency. So if you're used to thinking negatively about yourself, thinking critically about yourself, thinking about how far you have to go instead of how far you've come, that's going to be what's practiced and what's the default. It's always going to reach for that because it feels familiar. It's like if you're used to moving your body in a certain way, it's going to move that way because that's how you've built your muscles, that's how you've built your structure. You're going to do what feels comfortable. Versus if you go to the gym and you like lift weights for the first time, that's going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to feel harder to do. It's going to take and require more energy and effort to practice a new skill, to build new muscles. And the brain, like I said, is wired for efficiency, so it's not going to want to exert that energy if it doesn't have to. So speaking of which, if you're not inundated by these negative thoughts and negative feelings, and maybe you feel hopeful, you feel optimistic, you feel confident, you feel capable. Again, when it comes to working towards new goals, believing in something that you've never done before, that requires effort and energy. So it's easier for the brain to say, I don't know, I failed in the past, nothing works, I might as well just quit, it's probably never going to work out. That is easier to do than to ask yourself, I don't know how to do this. I've never done it before, and I'm willing to try. I'm willing to experiment and see what happens. I'm willing to think of new ideas. I'm willing to ask my brain, what could we try that we've never done before? What actions could we take and experiment with to build the muscles and skills of evaluation, of taking action and seeing what happens? All of these, again, require energy, require effort, and the brain would rather not do that. It would rather not exert that energy. So I find it really useful to be able to just understand why this is happening in the first place, why your brain doesn't want you to believe, why your brain feeds you critical thoughts all day long. Because for me, understanding that takes away some of the judgment and shame. Because I know in the past, I've definitely judged myself of like, oh, why am I being so hard on myself? Why is this taking so long to overcome this, to build confidence? Why is this so hard? I should have figured this out already. This should be easier. Again, all of the critical thoughts. And recognizing why the brain does this has helped me not judge myself for this experience and know and understand that this is a very human experience. I would assert that probably every single person in the world has felt some flavor of this at some point in time. So to be able to have compassion for yourself, I find to be really important and valuable. So again, if this is happening for you, that you're swimming in negative thoughts, your brain is hypercritical, nothing you do is ever enough, the first thing I find that helps to move past this is simply to understand why this is happening in the first place so that you can start to let go of the judgment and shame you might have for experiencing this in the first place. Another thing that I find to be helpful in relationship to this is to really see the impact. And again, that's why I asked you, like, how do you feel if this ever comes up for you? And understanding that the impact when I am disappointed in myself, when I am judgmental, when I'm critical of myself, I feel this like heavy, draining energy. And the impact of that is that I take less action. I have less creative ideas. I am trying to combat these thoughts that I have less vital life force energy to pour into my goals, to pour into the things I want to believe in, to pour into the dreams I want to pursue. So when I understand the impact of that, it becomes important to me to make a shift. And this is with anything. I talk about this with my clients all the time, that in order to make any kind of change, internally or externally, in order to pursue any kind of goal, it's important to have a why. So if this is something that is challenging for you, in order to start shifting this pattern, having a why that you would desire to do this in the first place is really important. And that's one of the things that helped me change this pattern for myself. Understanding what was happening, what was the impact of that, and then understanding, reconnecting to what was important to me. I have big dreams and big goals in this lifetime. There's ways that I want to be of service in this world. There's an impact I want to have in this world. And the more critical I am of myself, the less energy I have to pour into other people. And this is one thing that's interesting, especially for my clients and the folks that feel like thinking about myself in a positive way is selfish. What we talk about is how when you do take time to celebrate yourself, to celebrate your progress and really like feel good about it, not just say it to say it, but really be able to look back on your past, on the things that you've done and be like, wow, I've grown. I have grown and there's so much to celebrate about myself. I'm proud of myself because of this. I see that I overcame this obstacle. Like, wow, I'm so grateful that I put myself out there in this way. When you do that, and imagine for yourself too, if you can imagine just saying anything nice to yourself, really taking a moment to celebrate anything. And I know this could feel unfamiliar for many if you're listening to this and you're not in this habit. And what I've discovered is that when I do that, I have so much more energy. I'm not spending so much time drowning in these critical thoughts in my brain that all of a sudden I have more capacity to think about other things. I have more capacity to problem solve my goals, problem solve and imagine what actions I want to take. I have more creative energy to think about other people, to think about the impact I want to have on other people. And that, again, has helped me reconnect to why it matters to celebrate myself and remember that it's not actually selfish, that when we celebrate ourselves, we have more energy to pour into others. And we're also more willing to celebrate other people. Because when we recognize the impact that this has on us, it all of a sudden, the story changes. That it doesn't have to mean that you're just boastful and arrogant and want attention. It can be a positive thing to celebrate yourself and celebrate other people. And this is something that I find comes up with clients as well. And this has definitely come up with me, of this feeling of jealousy, this feeling of comparison, this sense of when you see other people reach a goal or have something in their life that you want, it can feel hard to celebrate them. Again, because we're focused on lack within ourselves. We're focused on what's missing inside of ourselves, how we're behind, what's not working in our own journey. So it can feel like a reminder of what's missing inside of us when we see someone else have something that we want. Versus if you practice feeling enough inside of yourself, feeling happy, feeling grateful, feeling acknowledgement for yourself, it becomes much easier to support other people. And then again, we can all raise each other up when we're in that vibration, when we can have compassion for ourselves and our humanity, when we can be grateful for our own journey, when we can not make it mean anything about me, when I see you experiencing success, then we're all able to lift each other up that much more. So if you're hearing anything in this that feels like a why for you, just ask yourself what matters to you at the end of the day. Is it important for you to contribute to other people? Is it important for you to create deep, intimate relationships? Is it important to you to share your gifts and your offerings and your services in the world? What is important to you? And then ask yourself, how could it be true that celebrating yourself could give you more energy to pour into what matters? So like I said, this is a conversation that I've been having with my clients like day in and day out lately. So I really wanted to give you an inside look into this. And I know that this can be challenging to do. So if this feels hard, I invite you not to judge yourself. Another thing I want to offer, if it feels hard to bypass these critical thoughts in the brain, is I think a lot, teach a lot, coach a lot on intuition. And for me, intuition is about connecting to this inner wisdom, this energy that is greater than ourselves, whether you think about this connection to your heart, connection to spirit, connection to the universe, connection to this greater vital life force energy, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. This bigger energy that's greater than us. So connecting to your intuition, I have found, allows you to access a deeper truth that goes beyond these automatic, primitive, fear-based thoughts. So if you want to strengthen your connection to your intuition and start learning how to listen to these inner messages, this inner guidance, I have a super fun free resource that you can find on my website at ginakasbara.com/intuition. This is a really fun, intuitive tool that even just using it alone helps you strengthen your intuition. If you've ever used oracle cards before, it's kind of like that. So you just ask your heart, what intuitive practice would serve me most in this moment? Let your hands drift across the screen or scroll on your phone if you're looking on your phone. And there's going to be 5 cards face down. So you're going to let your intuition guide you to one of those cards. And that is the intuitive practice that could serve you most in this moment. And then you'll get access to a video and a breakdown of that practice that you can explore to see what message and wisdom and guidance would serve you in this moment, as well as access to the rest of the practices for you to experiment with when you're craving intuitive guidance and wisdom. So that is a really concrete, tangible tool you can start exploring if you want to see how to get past the negative mental mind chatter. And there's so many more tools and practices I could share with you and I share with my clients. And what I really wanted to share with you in today's episode, again, is to understand why your brain does this. so that you can hopefully give yourself some compassion, give yourself some grace if you're feeling and experiencing this and understanding why this happens in the first place, and then to start to reconnect to what difference it would make if you started celebrating yourself. Because just that willingness, just that understanding, I find opens up something. And another one of my clients recently, I said to her, this has taken me years to develop this practice. And she was like, wait, years? Like I have to do this for years. And it's my invitation too is to not judge yourself and the progress. So if this feels hard, that doesn't mean it's always going to feel this hard. When I first, like I said, a couple years ago, really started working more intentionally on this practice of celebration, it was really hard at first. My brain fought me every step of the way. And it would just, anytime I tried to find something positive, it'd be like, nope, that's not good enough. And this is why it's not good enough, and give me all kinds of reasons. But the more that I directed my brain to celebration, to what was working, and let myself honestly feel that, the stronger this muscle became. And I 100% believe that will happen for you too. And I invite you to let go of the judgment of pace and know that there are ways to bring lightness, to bring fun into this process. And honestly, that's one of the things that inspired me to create this event, Believe, that I'm hosting on June 25th. It's in person at the House Handcrafted in Baltimore. And if you're not in Baltimore, stay tuned because there's something for you too. But if you're in Baltimore, this event is coming up on June 25th at the House Handcrafted. This shop is a super magical shop filled with all kinds of creative, intentional items that Amanda McCormick, the shop owner, created and poured her love and intention into. So in this evening, we are going to explore, what is it that you want to believe in? Why does it matter so much? That dream, that shift, whatever it is, why does that matter so much? And be able to explore what's the unique flavor of what gets in your way. Because I shared a little bit on this episode of things that I found get in my way and have gotten clients' ways, but what is coming up uniquely for you that gets in your way of believing in that dream, of pursuing that dream. And then I'm going to share what I think really gets in the way underneath all of that, because so often it's much different than we think. It's not because you're not capable. It's not because you're not ready. It's not because you're not experienced enough. So we'll break down what is really going on so that, again, you can let go of shame and judgment, any story you have for experiencing that in the first place. And then we'll explore what can help you build belief in a really tangible, embodied way. Because the brain is just one thing that we have access to, that we can work with. We can also work with our senses. We can work with our body. We can work with our environment, our surroundings, color, imagery, smells. We can work with so many other things that can help us drop past this primitive brain. So we're going to explore how to do that together. You're going to be guided through some really powerful exercises to feel into this version of you who is capable of whatever dream it is that you want to believe in, and get to know that person, and then explore what could help you anchor into that belief. And you'll have an opportunity to look around or shop Amanda's store if you want to find an item that helps you remember and anchor into this belief, because that's one of the things we're going to talk about, how to work with your surroundings, your environment, physical items to build belief. And for me, I got into feng shui because at one point I just became so tired of constantly fighting my mind. And I see that in my clients as well, this feeling that they're fighting with these critical thoughts. So if you've ever felt this way, you're going to learn some really powerful practices to bypass. I don't want to say bypass, but yeah, to work with other powers we have available to us so that we can feel better, feel more confident, feel more courageous, and more willing to take risks, to pursue our dreams so that you can feel like you are living a life of no regrets and that you really went after it, whatever it is, and learning how to actually enjoy your life now without being attached to this external achievement that must happen or external result in order to make you happy. So if this is calling to you, if you want to be surrounded by other passionate, inspiring, courageous humans who also want to believe in big dreams, come join us on June 25th. You can get a ticket at ginakesbauer.com/believe. There's limited spots. It sold out last time. So if you're listening to this, I really invite you to go to that website and grab your ticket now, because I do believe that it will sell out again. And yeah, there's something really special and magical about doing this work in person. So I hope that you join us. I can't wait to see the group that comes together. And like I said, I promised you that if you are not in Baltimore, there's something for you too. And while, of course, there's beautiful things about working together in person, there's also beautiful things about having access to this information and these tools no matter where in the world you are. That's why I offer clarity calls. So on these free calls, they are all about exploring what it is that you desire for your life. If you could imagine anything was possible, what would you want most? So we spend time getting clear about that, because the clearer that you are about that, that's when you're able to find out what it would take to bring that vision to life, to really tap into that in the first place, and also understand why it matters. So we're really going to turn the dial up on that in this conversation. And I find that people, again, walk away from these conversations so inspired, newly motivated, newly compelled by this dream that's calling them forward. So we're going to clarify that. And then we're also going to explore, similar to believe, what gets in your way. What are the things that hold you back or that you don't believe is possible in bringing that vision to life? And then I'll share with you what I believe would make the biggest difference to help you shift from where you are now to where you want to be, this life that you want to create. And I'll be able to share this really specific, holistic picture once I get this idea of what's going on in your life personally. And if it feels like working together is something that could support you, I'll share more about my work and we'll explore together if that feels like a good fit. So if you are feeling like now is the time, you don't want to just be thinking about the changes that you want to make or the dreams that you want to go after, you actually want to build the belief that it's possible and start taking steps towards that, I invite you to book one of these calls. You can go to ginakesbauer.com/clarity call to find a time for you. And like I said, no matter what, I am so committed that you leave this call feeling more clear, feeling more inspired, and also empowered to take whatever step that you feel compelled to take next, whether that ends up being working with me or not. I am most committed that you feel like you have clarity on what step is going to help you move forward and be in alignment with your goals. Because ultimately, that's one of the most important things that I help my coaching clients with. I help them understand their goals, understand why it matters, and hone in on what are the inspired actions they feel compelled to take week after week and have the courage to take them. Because going back to that primitive brain, the reality is we never know what's going to happen. It's always going to be uncertain, that open terrain, whether that uncertainty is what's going to happen if you invest in a coaching program, what's going to happen if you pursue your goal, what's going to happen if you pursue a relationship. We never get to know that ahead of time. So what can help us say yes to the things that feel like they're in alignment for us is understanding what matters to us and why, and having that be important enough that you're willing to take the risk. And that what also really helps is developing the skills that can help you navigate uncertainty. And that's exactly what we do in the coaching work that I get up to with my coaching clients. So if any of this resonates with you, sparks something for you, I hope I see you soon, either in person on June 25th or virtually. And for now, I really invite you to start this practice of celebration. What are 3 things that you can celebrate yourself at the end of every day? If you start doing this alone, I promise you that will make a tremendous difference. And even if it feels hard to believe at first, keep going. And then let me know 6 months from now what changes when you start celebrating yourself more. All right, my friend, I am celebrating you and I'm sending you so much love, and I'll talk to you soon.